but we need the back of the truck to do so. And possibly even the back of our van. So they're gonna stay around long enough for us to make that, dump and then get back.
And when we leave, we don't. Georgetown that will come over for 40 bucks, take everything away, and you'll never see it again. I can text you his
Take off the box.
yes.
So we have more boxes of stuff.
Yes, and he'll just take it to the dump. He's the nicest.
We do
guy.
that.
Do you want me to text you?
Yeah.
Exactly, he has a job. He is very well known in Scott County.
That's what I, for a fee, you can have come in.
Thursday at 10 o'clock. Somebody gave me his name. And I'm just telling you this, but Thursday at 10 o'clock, I'm meeting the guy.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are glad you are joining us here tonight. If you are here in the room, welcome. If you are online, thank you for joining us. My name is Patrick Devane. I am the senior pastor here at Georgetown Baptist Church, and we are excited for our second week of our prayer study. Our study is using this book, which is Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools. Now, you are free, several caveats with this. You are welcome to go ahead and just buy this on Amazon if you want. We can buy it, and you can pay us back. We're literally just buying it off of Amazon, but we're happy to do that if you need us to do it. You also don't have to buy the book. You can follow along, and we will keep you locked in whether you have the book with you or not. Last week was a great start, and I am very thankful for that. But if you weren't here last week, we want to make sure that we sort of have the frame of what's happening. So we are going to spend the next however long we need to talking about prayer. And we talked last week about some of the people in our lives who we knew to be prayer warriors. We talked about people who had been incredibly meaningful and who were inspiring. And then we talked about in our own lives, how would we assert it ourselves? And one of the things we didn't get to talk about is Tyler, the guy that wrote the book. He begins the book basically telling the story about him in middle school. And he talked about this idea about he had this youth minister or mentor who said to him, what would happen if you took prayer seriously this year for middle school? And he said, I don't know what would happen. And his mentor said, wouldn't it be interesting to find out? And so during the summer, he started walking around the school and praying for every name in his class. He had one of the, we used to hand out the little directory of students. And so he would pray for every student in his class. As school started, after he had done that every single day, as school started, he went in and asked, could he begin a, sort of Christian club in the morning? And the principal said, you can do that, but in order to do that, you have to have a sponsor. Well, he found a teaching sponsor, and he said, because middle schoolers love nothing more than pondering the deep things of life an hour before school starts once a week. Had outgrown the classroom, and half of the kids in his class had made a profession of faith. And he talked about, this wasn't a me thing. I was a middle schooler. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have some grand plan. But it was beginning and anchoring what I was going to do in prayer. This idea that prayer has real power. Prayer has real strength. And how do we make sure that we are living into the reality, the power of prayer? So, anybody from last week, is there something that stuck out to you? Or if you've read chapter 1, even if we didn't talk about? Is there something that stuck out to you, something we didn't talk about, something that you would like to make sure we hit before we keep going? Because I don't want to go through everything that we went over last week, but if there's something that we missed, I don't want to do that either.
Two things that I like. I was on like 12. It's about that. Do not be anxious about anything, but pray about everything. But most Christian followers spend far more time turning over their anxious thoughts and surrendering them in prayer. I thought, oh, I'm guilty of that. And then when he talked about faith and trust, I really liked that because I always thought that faith was the big, well, it is a big thing, but you know, you've got to have the trust to have the faith.
So one of the thank you. That's so good. One of the second one is this idea that the trust helps you to have faith. That you start with trust and trusting God, and in trusting God, you then have faith that what God says and what God promises will come true. That you don't just magically work up faith on your own. So here you go. There you are. Yep. So, and remind me, it already fell out of my brain, Gloria. What was the first one that you said?
About most Christians just...
Yes. And we talked a lot about that sense of we are very, very good about parking in our anxiety. We see the issue, we see the trouble, we see the problem. And we talked last week, the sermon last week about you see the Red Sea behind you, you see the Egyptians coming towards you, you don't see a way out. God, what are you doing here? Some version of, God, what are you doing here? Or, like just blind panic of what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? What's going to happen? What if I lose my job? What if the kids get sick? What if we lose our insurance? What if we lose our house? What if this? What if that? And that sense of the promise of Scripture is peace. The promise of Scripture is you don't have to be as anxious, as worried, as nervous, as wound up as everybody else is and seems to be. And yet, obviously you all aren't like this, but other Christians it seems like for many of us, it is difficult for us to claim that peace for ourselves when we then go and pick up that anxiety again. Thank you. All right. Where we landed last week was this idea of you pray as you can. That to start, you start wherever you can. If you don't like where your prayer life is, start praying. Start praying today. And we talked about some, but there really is all kinds of ways that you can do that. And just like you can't expect one medicine, diet, whatever to work for everybody based on their lifestyle, who's at home. If you are a caretaker for small children, or if you are a caretaker for parents, or if your life is filled with noise and attention, you maybe can't go on a 3-day silent retreat right now, right? That may sound like torture or heaven to you, depending on who you are, but that may just not be your season right now, and that's fine. But the reality is we have to start where we are. So you pray as you can, and that's one of the things they talked about in chapter 1. Don't pray as you can't. Don't put on these big, huge prayers that you read about from other people that sound like you need some sort of master's degree to be able to understand them. You pray as you can, and you start where you are. For some people, it's journaling. And for some people, that journaling is the way that you keep your mind trained on what you're doing. Because if you just sort of squirrel off wherever, if you're just sitting, okay, here I am, I'm ready to pray. Okay, did I start the laundry? I feel like I started the laundry. Is the dog throwing up? It sounds like the dog's throwing up. If the dog throws up and I'm sitting here for 20 minutes, there's going to be 20 minutes of vomit sitting on the... Okay, maybe I'll just go check. I'll just go check and make sure the dog hasn't thrown up, and then I started the laundry, and then everything's good. A journal can be a way for some that you just sort of rein yourself in, and you are tracking on what you're doing. For others, that sounds like torture, and I don't want that. I had a deacon who talked about that for him, in my church in Maryland, for him, he would get on the floor and stretch his whole body out and pray that way, because that way even the way his body wasn't going to be a distraction for him. He was younger and not married at the time, so he was able to do things like that. And I was like, that sounds great. I just can't imagine me... Yeah, I can't imagine me just splayed out on the floor and our dog coming over and being like, "Oh, playtime! Yes, this is amazing!" And then people walking in going, "What are you doing?" So, but for different people, it's just pray as you can. That same kind of idea of sort of, how do you start getting healthier? You put one foot in front of the other. So if praying as you can is the Lord's Prayer, or praying as you can is using a journal, or praying as you can is just doing one small thing, then that, the author is saying, is how we start. Don't get intimidated by what you're not doing. Don't look at all of the things that you see as failures. Just start where you can. All right? Excellent. So, we're going to move into chapter 2. Nope, not on that, we're not. We're going to move into chapter 2. Oh, there we go. Be still. So, prayer. Philip Yancey, who you may or may not have read. Prayer is the act of seeing reality from God's point of view. Prayer is the act of seeing reality from God's point of view. What do you think that means? Any idea?